This is you. 15 years on the homicide unit, and you've earned every gray hair the job gave you. While other detectives pass cold cases down the hall like nobody wants the last piece at Thanksgiving, you take them. You're the closer, the one they call when a case has gone sideways, and someone needs to put it to bed before the department gets embarrassed. You're good at reading lies, at sitting across a table from someone who thinks they're bulletproof, and watching them crack one answer at a time. It's not a gift, it's a habit you built the hard way. The job is your whole life, and you're mostly fine with that. Your apartment has boxes you never unpacked from 3 moves ago. Your last serious relationship ended because she said you loved the badge more than you loved her. She wasn't wrong. But there's Raymond, your brother, 7 years older, who became your entire family the year you turned 12 and your parents were gone within 6 months of each other. He was 19. He had nothing. No safety net, no plan, just 2 jobs and a kid brother who needed to eat. He never once made you feel like a burden. He drove you to school, he tracked down tutors. He made sure your tuition was covered every semester without ever letting you see him sweat over it. You made detective, and he acted like he'd won something himself. His money always stretched further than it should have for a man making what he made. You noticed this even back then. The math never quite worked. You told yourself it wasn't your business. You never asked. The call comes in on a Tuesday morning, 7:15, cold enough to see your breath. An industrial park on the east side. The kind of place that's half-empty warehouses and broken security cameras, and nobody around to see anything, which is exactly why someone picked it. The body is male, mid-30s. He's on his knees, face down, one shot placed behind the left ear at close range. Clean entry, no exit wound, which tells you the shooter was composed enough to choose his caliber carefully. No fight, no defensive wounds, no sign he tried to run. He either trusted whoever was behind him, or he knew running was pointless. You've seen enough executions to recognize the difference between one and a robbery gone bad. And this is not a robbery gone bad. No phone, no wallet, both taken, which means someone was thorough. His record pulls up 2 counts. Possession, years ago, nothing violent, nothing that suggests a life serious enough to end like this. Your partner walks the scene and calls it a gang settling. Could be. Probably is on paper. He's already thinking about lunch by the time you finish working the body. That's when the patrol officer who processed the scene mentions, almost as an afterthought, that there was something in the jacket pocket. He missed it in the initial sweep. A small fold of paper, soft from being carried around, pencil writing inside. A phone number. 10 digits, no name, no context. You bag it, log it, and run it back at the precinct as routine. Nothing about it seems significant yet. Your partner doesn't even glance over when you type it in. The result takes about 4 minutes to come back. You read it twice, then you look up at the ceiling. Then you read it a 3rd time because your brain is refusing to accept what your eyes are seeing on the first 2 passes. Your stomach drops straight through the floor. Registered to a burner. Of course it is. That part isn't surprising. Half the numbers you run in this job come back to prepaid phones bought with cash at gas stations and tossed in a week. Normally you'd note it, move on, wait for something more useful to surface. Except you know this number. Not know it the way you know a number you looked up once. Know it the way you know your own birthday. You've had it memorized for years. You dialed it once at midnight after too many drinks just to hear his voice, because it had been 3 weeks since you'd actually talked to your brother, and you missed him in that quiet way adults never admit to. He picked up and gave you hell for waking him, and you both laughed about nothing for 20 minutes. Raymond used that number for almost 2 full years before he told you he was switching phones. New carrier, cheaper plan, something boring like that. You didn't think twice about it. The registered name on the account is a fake. Obviously, 2 words that don't belong to any real person in any database you can find. A placeholder. The kind of name someone puts on a burner when they want just enough paper to exist without actually existing. You sit at your desk for a long time. Your brain starts working the way it does when a client walks into a meeting already lying, immediately building the most comfortable version of the facts. Burner numbers get recycled. Carriers resell them. Someone else could have had this same number after Raymond. Probably did. That's the rational explanation, and you tell yourself it's enough. You write up the preliminary report. The phone number goes in as an unregistered burner, no further leads. You don't mention what you recognized. You tell yourself you need more before you put something like that on paper. Your gut calls you a liar the second you hit submit. And you already know it's right. You should drop it. You know you should drop it. You've worked enough cases to understand exactly where this road goes when a detective starts pulling threads that aren't assigned to him, and it never ends clean. But you don't drop it. You call in a favor from a contact at a financial crimes unit who owes you from a case 3 years back, where you quietly made sure his name stayed out of a report it technically belonged in. He doesn't ask questions. 2 days later, you have the victim's financial records sitting in front of you in a coffee shop 2 miles from the precinct, and you're paying cash for a drink you don't touch. 3 wire transfers over the last 6 months. Not huge amounts, 12, 8, 15,000. But regular enough to be a pattern. All originating from the same Delaware LLC, a company that has a registered agent and a mailing address and no apparent business activity whatsoever. Shell companies aren't rare. You see them constantly. But when you cross-reference the LLC against local property records, it shows up connected to 2 commercial real estate transactions in the same 4-block radius where Raymond has lived for 11 years. You tell yourself that means nothing. It's a neighborhood. Lots of people do business in the same neighborhood. Then your CI calls. He's a low-level runner, moves messages and packages for 3 different operations without technically belonging to any of them, which makes him useful because he sees everything and answers to nobody in particular. He says the victim was seen the night he died, had a sit-down at a bar on Clement Street, the kind of place where the back booths stay dark by design. The man he met with, big guy, early 50s, scar on his chin, left side, shaped like a crescent. Quiet talker, someone people clearly didn't argue with. You set your coffee cup down very carefully. You know that scar. You've known it your entire life. You go home that night and you don't sleep. You sit at your kitchen table with your laptop and a contact list you've spent 15 years building, and you do something that could end your career and your freedom simultaneously. You pull Raymond's financials, not through any channel that gets logged, not through anything official. You know exactly what you're doing. You do it anyway. What comes back takes about 20 minutes to read through. It takes considerably longer to accept. Raymond has been running money through shell companies for years. Not recently, not as some recent bad decision, but going back further than you want to calculate. Further back than your promotion to detective. Further back than your mother's cancer diagnosis, which is where the first number that stops you cold appears. The medical bills that somehow got paid in full when his salary at the time couldn't have covered a quarter of them. You remembered being relieved. You remembered thinking he must have taken out a loan and feeling guilty that he'd done that for you both, and telling yourself you'd pay him back someday. There was no loan. The tuition. The house he bought in cash in a neighborhood he had no business affording. The car he drove for 8 years that cost more than anything a man with his paper income had any right to own. You'd looked at all of it over the years and made peace with the math not adding up because the alternative was a question you didn't want to ask. The money came from an organization that has been running protection rackets, narcotics distribution, and contract enforcement across 3 neighborhoods on the east and south sides for at least 20 years, not on the fringes of it. Not as a civilian who got pulled in reluctantly. Raymond is one of the people who built the infrastructure. His name, shielded behind layers of LLCs, is in the architecture of the whole operation. Your brother didn't just bend the rules to keep you fed. He spent 2 decades constructing something that destroyed other people's neighborhoods while protecting yours. You sit in your car outside the precinct for 45 minutes without moving. Then you drive to his house. He opens the door before you finish knocking. His face does the thing faces do when someone has been waiting for a conversation they hoped would never come. A kind of exhausted resignation. Like a man who's been carrying something heavy for so long, he's almost relieved to finally set it down. Even if setting it down destroys him, you don't say anything. You walk past him into the kitchen and sit down. He follows. No raised voices, no badge on the table, no accusations fired across the room. Just two people sitting across from each other in a kitchen that smells like coffee and old wood, with the kind of silence between them that has weight. He starts talking. It was the year after your parents died. You were 13, he was 19, with a dead-end job, a stack of bills that laughed at his paycheck, and a younger brother who needed school clothes and food and a future that wasn't going to build itself. Someone made him an offer. Cash, immediate, no paperwork, no questions. He told himself it was one time. He told himself he'd get out the moment he had enough to stabilize things. He says this without any performance, without asking you to feel sorry for him. He says it like a man reading facts from a document. He knew it was a lie when he told it to himself. He knew it the first time, and every time after that. But the tuition got paid. The medical bills when your mother got sick, those got handled. You stayed off the street, stayed in school, stayed pointed in the right direction. He watched you make detective, and he felt something he still can't name properly. You sit there, and you let him talk until there's nothing left to say. The kitchen is very quiet. Outside, a car passes. Neither of you moves. You're both sitting inside the rubble of a story you thought you knew, trying to figure out what any of it means now. Then he keeps talking, and this is where it stops being the story of a desperate 19-year-old kid making the only choice he thought he had. The man from the industrial park, the one on his knees with a single shot behind the ear. Raymond knew him. He'd been pulling money out of the operation for months, skimming from collections, small enough amounts each time that it took a while to surface. But it surfaced. These things always surface. The organization identified it, confirmed it, and handed down the decision the way they hand down all decisions. Quietly, finally, with no room for discussion. They gave Raymond the order, not to do it personally. He's clear about that distinction, and you notice him being clear about it, and you notice yourself noticing, but to pass it down and make certain it happened. He made the call. He relayed the instruction. 3 days later, the body was in the industrial park, and you were standing over it in the cold. He tells you this the way someone talks in a confessional. No drama, no excuses layered on top of it. Like the act of saying it out loud carries its own value regardless of what happens next. You think that's the full picture. It isn't. Last spring, there was an informant, 26 years old, low level, but he'd been in the right rooms long enough to know things that could have unraveled the entire organization. He went to the feds, he gave a preliminary statement, and then, about 2 months later, he recanted everything. Told investigators he'd exaggerated, misremembered, that he wasn't reliable. The case collapsed before it started. You followed that story from a distance when it happened. Figured someone had paid him off. Raymond is looking at the table when he says the kid didn't recant for money. He says the kid didn't sleep right for 3 months afterward. He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. You've been a detective for 15 years. You understand exactly what he's describing. You drive home on autopilot. You don't remember 3 of the 4 turns. Your partner has texted 3 times asking where the case update is. Your captain sent a message at 9:15 saying he wants a sit-down first thing in the morning. No details, just that clipped tone he uses when something is already wrong. You read both without responding and set the phone face down on the passenger seat. Back at your apartment, you don't turn on the lights. You sit in the chair by the window and you stay there. You think about being 13 years old and having nothing left and Raymond showing up every single day anyway. You think about what it would have looked like without him. The group home, the street, the 30 different directions a kid with no anchor can get pulled when the anchor disappears. You think about the fact that the badge on your hip exists because of him. That the career you've spent 15 years building, the reputation, the cases closed, the victims who got answers, All of it was purchased with money that came from the same machine that put a man on his knees in an industrial park. You think about that man? You think about a 26-year-old who did the right thing and paid for it every night for 3 months. There is no version of this where you walk away clean. There never was. The moment you recognized that phone number and didn't flag it, the clock started. You've just been waiting to find out which direction you'd fall. You sit in the dark for a long time. Then you pick up the phone and dial.